Okay, let's do this. All right. So, what are we going to talk about today? I want to talk about a couple of things that are really important. And it's something that I think everybody nowadays has dealt with. And I think it's something that we should talk about. So, I want to talk about the idea of hope and the importance of hope, but also the weaponization of hope against us, the concept of optimism and realism, naivete, and this idea of the black pill. Okay. I mean, that's something that I get accused of being a lot. Like, oh, I'm black pilled or I'm black pilling others. Well, first of all, what does that even mean? So let's start there. What is this term, the black pill? What does it mean? Why do people use it? So the term black pill is related to the terms red pill, blue pill, etc. Many of you are probably familiar with the film The Matrix or the I mean there's more than one, but like the Matrix series. And if you've never seen The Matrix, then you should probably stop this video right now and go watch The Matrix. If that's you, then welcome back. Welcome back to this video. Hope you enjoyed The Matrix. It's kind of one of those movies that I do feel like you have to. First of all, I feel like everybody's seen it, but so much of that movie um I mean, I do believe that it's a revelatory movie for sure. Many people think that. But also even just a lot of the terminology from the movie, like the red pill and the blue pill, etc., and a lot of other terms from the movie, they have just been kind of imported into our lexicon when it comes to the way in which we describe the world or conspiracy type ideas, etc. Okay, regardless of whether or not you like the movie or whatever, but that's just true about the movie when it comes to this type of research and communicating about these ideas. So there's the choice of the red pill or the blue pill. The blue pill is you basically kind of remain where you are. The red pill is you start to discover how things really are. You kind of wake up from the normal world view, and you see how things really are. So that's the choice, the blue pill or the red pill. But kind of using that same terminology, there's been the introduction of this other idea, which is the black pill. So when people talk about the black pill, what they mean is, and I don't use this terminology. I mean, I think it's even whatever. If you want to use red pill or blue pill, it's so I mean, it's just become so overused that I don't really use those terms. I think they're kind of lame or whatever. So I don't really use the term black pill, but a lot of people do, which is why I'm addressing it. I also think it's kind of a lazy way to characterize what someone else says in most cases, maybe not in every case, but when people accuse someone of being black pilled or trying to black pill others, what they mean is that this person who is supposedly black pilled believes that there is no hope. It's almost a defeatist type of attitude, or perhaps even nihilistic. There's nothing we can do. There's no hope. You shouldn't even try. And if you are trying, then you're just naive. That's kind of what being black pilled means. I am not black pilled. I do not black pill others. Okay. I have been accused of that. And again, I think that's a lazy accusation. I also don't think that I have ever communicated anything that should lead a reasonable person to accuse me of being black pilled. But whatever, that's fine. So, but I do want to kind of parse through some of these ideas today because they are important. And I want to explain where I stand and where I think we should stand. So, first of all, embracing reality, embracing truth is not being black pilled. Urging others to embrace reality or to understand truth is not black pilling others. Okay, that's an overly reductive and overly simplistic way of trying to characterize someone's attempt to get others to kind of snap out of their trance. And many people are still walking around in a trance, so to speak. It is quite possible to be optimistic without being naive. It is also quite possible to be realistic without being pessimistic. Okay, now that's important. So I'm going to say that again. It is quite possible to be optimistic without being naive, just as it is quite possible to be realistic without being pessimistic. So for me, I think there are many reasons for us to be hopeful right now. I do not believe that, first of all, I'm not a nihilist. I'm not this person who just thinks that there's no hope, there's nothing we can do, and that therefore we shouldn't even try. I do not think that at all. That is the absolute opposite of what I think. That said, I do believe that an optimistic outlook must be grounded in a realistic appraisal of the gravity of the situation. Otherwise, yeah, you are being naive. So for me, I do think that our situation is very bad. I think it is very, very bad. I think we live in a very evil world that is controlled by evil. That's just what I think. Okay. If you disagree, then you disagree, but that's what I think. And I think it is all around us. I do not think we're going to get help from our government. No, I don't think Trump is here to save us. I mean, no. And I do think that people who do think that are naive. I do. I'm sorry. I do. But that doesn't mean that I'm not optimistic. It just means that I'm not, as I say, I do not wish to be an agent of my own enslavement. And I don't want others to become unwitting agents of their own enslavement. So I want us to look for real, true, lasting solutions, then try and look for solutions amid the same institutions that are bringing about our enslavement. Okay, that doesn't mean that I'm against the government or whatever, at least in the abstract. But what it does mean is that no, I don't think our current government or the form of de facto governance that kind of controls this nation. No, I don't think that that's where deliverance is going to come from. I don't think that at all. But that doesn't mean that I don't think there's hope, and it doesn't mean that I don't think that there are solutions. Because that's another critique that people level at me all the time. You just talk about the problem, but you never talk about solutions. Okay, all right. Well, let's address that critique for a moment. If we want to come up with comprehensive strategies for how we move forward in a true way, then we must understand the problem. And the majority of people out there do not understand the problem to any appreciable degree. So if we don't understand the problem, if we can't properly frame the problem, how can we come up with some sort of plan that leads toward lasting solutions? So that's kind of my issue with people constantly. They want solutions, but a lot of people don't necessarily even understand the problem that we're trying to solve. That doesn't mean that there are no solutions. It just means that, hey, we need more people to understand the problem so that we can start looking for real solutions other than looking for solutions in the same place that the problem comes from, if that makes sense, right? And now, again, I'm not saying people don't have a valid point when they say, what are the solutions? So I think that's a valid point. What I don't think is valid is to come at me and say that I've never, ever addressed any solutions or that all I talk about are the problems, because you're kind of putting the cart before the horse. The first thing we can do in finding solutions is get more people to understand the problem and stop looking in the wrong place for solutions, you know? So yeah, be hopeful, be optimistic. There are many things that we can use to leverage to move things in our direction. That's true. And yeah, more people are waking up. That's true. But a lot of people are also going back to sleep. So be hopeful, be optimistic, but be vigilant. You know, there's a video that I put out a couple of weeks ago in which I said that vigilance is the watchword of 2025. Why? Because so many people are going back to sleep. So let's look for those solutions. But at the same time, let's remember that there aren't going to be easy solutions or risk-free options. A lot of people want, it's as if they want like a cookie cutter, 1, 2, 3 step process for how we, get out of all of this. It's not going to be that easy. But there are many people out there who are doing great things, and I applaud those efforts. And we can talk more about those. That's not necessarily where I want to go with here, but it is important that we talk about solutions. And I do believe that, you're free to hold me accountable to that too, because I don't want to be the person who only talks about the problem. but I will not be someone who shies away from drawing attention to the problem either. So let's talk about solutions, and let's talk about strategies that we can employ to move forward towards greater freedom. But again, in order to do that, we have to properly frame, the problem. Um, there's the old statement, it was popularized by President Reagan, right? Trust but verify. So interestingly enough, he didn't invent that phrase. That's actually an old Russian proverb, which is kind of ironic when you think about how President Reagan used to use that to kind of describe almost American Soviet relations during his administration. But it's actually a Russian proverb. But anyway, so trust but verify, it's kind of a fun statement. It's slightly I get it's like it's almost it almost kind of doesn't make sense, which is what I think allows the statement to make sense, because it's almost a little bit paradoxical, or at least it could be interpreted that way. Which makes the statement kind of fun. You just kind of intuitively understand what it means when somebody says trust but verify. Like, I'm going to trust you, but I'm still going to check up on you. I don't know. Does that in fact mean that you then trust the person? Great question. Um, but when it comes to our leaders, those in government, should we trust them? Well, I can't give you a yes or no answer. It depends on who you're talking about and a bunch of different, circumstances around that specific individual, the position that they're in, their background, who they associate with, etc. So that's not necessarily my point. Is to give you an answer, yes or no, that you could apply to every member of our government right now. It also depends on whether or not you're talking about the government in DC. Are you talking about your state government, local government? What are you talking about? Um, but I do believe that if you feel inclined to trust these individuals, then it should not be a blind trust. They they have not earned that. Okay, so trust but verify, and there are ways in which you can do that, and we can talk more about that. I don't want to get too hung up on that here. But kind of in the same vein, let me mention something else. So there's a statement, almost like a rule of thumb or a heuristic, that is often stated in a way that is something like never attribute to malice that which can be explained by stupidity. Okay, I'm going to say that again. It's a little bit of a mouthful. Never attribute to malice that which can be explained by stupidity. What does that mean? When you see something happen that is bad or something that appears to harm you, don't assume that it was done through malicious intent. Someone may not have meant to do it. That's kind of what the statement means. So I wrote a Substack a while back called, so anyway, that rule of thumb there, that kind of heuristic, is known as Hanlon's razor. And I wrote a Substack a while back called The Limitations of Hanlon's Razor, because I think when you look at Hanlon's razor, which again, never attribute to malice that which can be explained by stupidity, I think that's a fairly good rule for your interactions with your friends, your family, your colleagues, your coworkers, people that you generally know, people that you generally trust. I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Something happens to you, don't necessarily jump to conclusions that the person who supposedly perpetrated that act against you meant for it to harm you. There may have been some other explanation, right? But I think there are limitations to Hanlon's razor, because I do believe that there are institutions out there that are populated by individuals that absolutely, verifiably mean to harm you, me, the citizens of this country, and people around the world. And I think their actions demonstrate that. And yes, I think we can reasonably assess what their motivations are. Maybe not perfectly, but we can reasonably draw those assessments, using some analysis. And so that's where I think that Hanlon's razor breaks down, because I do think that there are times and there are situations in which you must assume that malicious intent was present and governs those acts that have happened. And when I say that when I say that I don't trust our government or the principal leaders in our government, here's what I mean. First of all, I'm not making any pronouncement as to someone's eternal fate. That's up to God. I do not feel in any way qualified to declare what I think someone's eternal fate is going to be, or whether or not I think someone, is going to repent or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is there are people out there that have declared themselves to be our enemies. Okay. And it's important that we understand that. Failure to do so is naivete. It just is. And I've said before, I'll say it again here. The fastest way to lose a war is to realize too late that you're in one. And the second fastest way to lose a war is to fail to understand the type of war that you're in. And this goes back to my concept of deep war. You guys can check out what I've said or what I've written about that. But it would be naive for us to misunderstand the type of war that we're in. And we are absolutely in a war. And there are people who want to control us, want to enslave us. Some of them want to destroy us, and they see us as their enemies. We must understand that. So again, do I think that there are reasons to be optimistic? Do I think that things are happening that are good? Yeah, but I also think a lot of bad things are happening. And I think that some of the things that appear to be good on the surface are actually traps. They're meant to lull us into a false sense of security, but in reality, they're going to be harmful. I think a lot of that is happening right now. I laid some of that out in my previous video from a couple months ago, I guess from 2 months ago, called What to Look Out For in 2025. So I don't want to go over that here, but people need truth. We should not contribute to the collective deception that is going on right now. And I refuse to do that. I just put a video out called Refuse the Lie. So I am not going to be part of the lie. I am not going to suck up or kowtow to people that I think are evil. And I think that they view us as their enemy. So I'm not going to suck up to them. I am not going to participate in the charade that they care about us or they care about the Constitution or whatever. That would be naive. I'm not going to do that. But why do I have hope? Well, first and foremost, because I believe in God, and nobody's going to pull the wool over God's eyes. I mean, what's the worst that these people can do? I mean, the worst they can do is kill the body. But I don't want that to happen. That's why, that's why we have to resist. I also believe that there is this relationship that cannot be severed between freedom and truth. And so if we want to align ourselves with truth, then I think that there has to be some element of freedom for us to do that, but also that by aligning ourselves with truth, we will also in turn create more freedom, And so I think it's important that we understand that relationship. So no, I don't want us to be enslaved. I think that there are worse fates, but no, I don't want us to be enslaved and I don't want us to be destroyed. And I will do what I have to do to ensure that doesn't happen. I want to be part of moving things forward in a direction that is consistent with truth and freedom. But yeah, I repeat, yes, I think there are reasons to be optimistic. I mean, I'm a hopeful person by nature, but I'm not going to be naive. And I'm not going to participate in the collective deception that is going on right now. And remember, a key part of the deception is self-deception. And I don't want people allowing themselves to be deceived. There's another point on that. Complex deception, and the deception that a lot of times gains the most traction is the deception that is wrapped around a lot of truth. The truth is the hook, and people latch onto that truth, but then there are untruths or falsehoods attached to it, and that's done in these sophisticated campaigns of deception. They're predicated upon a lot of truth that kind of lures the people in. And something that is kind of similar to that is the weaponization of hope. So can truth be weaponized against us? Yes, it's important that we understand that. Truth is fundamental. But the fact that truth is fundamental doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be used against us. A skillful liar Doesn't tell you some whopper that no one's going to believe. You lie as little as possible and stick to the truth as much as possible in order to increase the chances that you're believed. I feel like this is not like I feel like every teenager knows this. You don't tell the crazy lie to your parents or whatever. You deviate as little as possible from the truth to make it more believable. I don't think you have to be a devious person to understand that. I think to some degree it's just common sense. But the other thing is hope. Hope is necessary. Hope is essential, but hope can also be weaponized against us because it's that hope that also can act as a lure to bring you in, and then you latch onto something else, right? And then what happens when you place your hope in something and then it doesn't work out? A lot of times the despair that then follows is greater than it would have been if you had never held out hope in the first place. I am not saying don't hope, just like I'm not saying don't align yourself with truth. What I am saying is you got to be vigilant as you do so. So, no, I'm not black pilled. I'm very hopeful, but I'm not naive. I refuse to be naive. That doesn't mean that I understand everything perfectly. I would never say that. I'm constantly refining my own worldview for sure. I do believe in solutions, and I think that we need to look for solutions. And I want to do another video another time in which we can talk specifics about solutions. And I also want to talk about some strategies. And I also just want to talk about strategy itself, kind of the idea of strategy and what strategy is, and just kind of talk about that. But I'll just kind of close with something that I said a couple of minutes ago. But remember, it's quite possible to be optimistic without being naive, just as it's quite possible to be realistic without being pessimistic. So for me, yeah, I feel like I can be both optimistic and realistic at the same time. Yeah, I think I can do that. Why? Because for me, as I said, my optimism it presupposes this realistic appraisal of where we're at, and rejects where we're not at. So yeah, I think the situation is very bad. I think in some ways it's actually getting worse. In other ways, maybe it's getting a little bit better. But things are trending in a bad direction. And I see the stage being set for uh, war and the further creation of the control grid around us. I think those things are happening, and it's important that we understand that and that we're not naive to that. So be optimistic, be hopeful, but don't be naive, and absolutely do not fall for the black pill. That the nihilism that comes from being black pilled, um, that is not from God. Losing hope is not from God. It is not. Feeling terrible despair or feeling that you are in the depths of despair, that is not from God. So we can't allow ourselves to go down that route. So anyway, I hope some of this made sense. I don't necessarily know that I covered this super eloquently, but I appreciate you sticking around. And if you like the video, then please share it. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. So let me know what you think about optimism. Let me know what you think about hope. Let me know what you think about naivete or the black pill or solutions. Just whatever you think. Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.